Hey guys, this is E with Scrapbooking with Me, and I thought today we would start on a Valentine journal since we only have like 14 days. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 3 different kits. I'm going to use my kit that I just put up today. I'll show you that in a minute. Presley's kit that she put up yesterday, and then Alicia's kit, that's the ephemera hearts. And I am going to show you how to, I had many requests for me to show how I did a journal using this type packaging. And this is that packaging that has that old yucky stuff in there. Now I'm going to tell you that yucky stuff will get everywhere when you cut it if you're not careful. I just use a baby wipe and wipe it up. I'm also going to use the Tulip Bread VersaFine that we just got in yesterday. I have more of that coming. We almost sold out last night of what, I told you I only ordered a few. We almost sold out, so I will have more of that on the way. This is the fabric that we're going to use for the outside. And then for the inside, I'm going to use this fabric from Betty. This is Betty's beautiful fabric. I love it. I love that big strand of pearls there. So we're going to use that on the inside. Now here is Presley's kit. I'll show you up close. I have printed it out. I haven't printed anything on the back, but I printed it out. And this one is called My Valentine. I will link these below. Isn't that pretty? For her first kit, I think she did great. I think Leisha helped her on some of these, but still, she is very good artist. These are beautiful. We'll use those in some different ways. This one, I love it. And then there's Paris. I printed mine full page, so, I've got a little bit cut off maybe. That won't be cut off of yours if you don't print full page. I just stick it on full page, and I can always adjust it, but I just stick it on there and let it go. And then this one, to me, is kind of a springy type page. I may not use this one in there. I may save this for my spring journals, but I thought that's very pretty too. So it's 7 pages of that one. And then here is the, let's see, this one is called Ephemera Hearts. I love these. This is all the ephemera, and I'll be using all of this in my journal. Isn't that pretty? Again, this is more of a springy type, so I'll save that back for the spring. The others of these have got hearts and things on them, so I'll use those. So that one is that, 7 pages of that. And then I just put up today my new kit, and this one is called Vintage Valentine, and it's got 23 pages in it. And, I do front and back, so it's got front, background, and the ephemera. So now a couple of these you'll recognize from the freebie last Friday. I told you I would be bringing out a kit that had that included. So this was one of the freebies. So there's that page, and then there's the background sheet. And I think this was the other one. There's that page and the background sheet. And then there's that one on the background sheet. This one I love. This is one of my favorites. Love it. And the background sheet. And then this one, I don't know, that one's pretty, I like that one too, because I love books. And I made this shelf. This was actually something completely different, and I made that shelf on there, so, but isn't that cute? I love it. It's background, and then this one, I love old clocks too. And the background. This one, this is where I made that frame. I cut this out, or not cut it out, but I did it with my pencil and penciled that out, and then used it as the bottom to make a shelf out of. Isn't that pretty? Love those. And there's the background sheet, and then this one, and the background sheet, then this one. I had to bring a little bit of teal in there, right? Background sheet. And then this one I thought was very pretty. Now you may still see a little bit of streaks in my printing. That's just my printer. shows up every now and then on a dark spot. I have had them out and cleaned the head, and they're going to have to do it again, I think. I print so much that sometimes it's just inevitable, but you have to get really close to see it. It's not something that sticks out like a sore thumb. And then that one. And then these are the ephemera sheets. So you've got 4 pockets, and then I put little tags everywhere just to keep from wasting the space. And then you've got 4 more pockets here of a different kind. And then I did 3 tags, and then this I just put on there that you can use it for a washi strip or use it for a little side tuck. I just had some room and I stuck something on there. So that is my kit that I put up today. It is over there. I'll link it below. I'll link all of these below, but we're going to use this with this. Don't you think that's going to be pretty? Yep, I do too. Now, the first thing that I do when I am starting to make a journal cover, and I'm just going to go over it just like nobody has ever made one before. I know a lot of you have, and a lot of you probably make them a lot better than me, and that's wonderful. But there are some people out there that are brand new at this, and they have no clue. So we're going to teach them from start to finish. I take my piece, and first off, I need to decide how many signatures I'm going to put in here, because that's going to make a difference on how big it is. So I think in this one, since I've got so many pages, and then I'll add book pages and all of that, I think I'm going to have at least 2 signatures. So, and each signature needs to be at least 1/4 of an inch apart. So normally I make my covers I make them like 13 by 9.5. But since I'm going to add another signature in there, I need at least another 1/2 inch on that. So I'm going to start measuring in just a minute. But first I want to cut this part off. Now I don't want that where it glued together, so I'm just going to cut that off. If your piece is not big enough, you can always just unglue that and use it, but mine's going to be big enough without it. So we're going to toss that away. Now, all right, we're going to cut this end off. And then we're going to separate this, because this is enough for 2. So I am going to cut this off. Now I'm not cutting straight, not worried about any of that right now. Right now I'm just getting these glue pieces off. Okay, we have 2 separate pieces now. So we're going to use this piece. I'm going to lay this one aside. No particular reason. No particular reason. Now, if you have a T-square ruler, you can use that to get everything squared up. If you don't want to go to that process and, go that length, then you can just do it any way that you want to. I have a T-square ruler, and it does help when you're trying to get things straightened up. So I know that this side is pretty straight, because this is the side did I cut that? I don't know if I did or not. But anyway, it's pretty straight. I'm just going to bring my T-square ruler over here and hold it down, and I'm going to make a little mark. And then I am gonna, let's see, I know I don't need this much, but hold on. I'm going to put my T-square ruler on that line. And this doesn't have to be so precise, because it's going to be hidden, but, I at least try to get it a little bit straight. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. So I'll put it on that line, and then I'm just going to hold that down and then mark it. It just kind of gives me something to cut by. Now I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to measure from that line. I know normally I do 13, so that's 12 right there. Normally I do 13, which is there, but I want to add about 1/2 inch, because we want to put another signature in there. So I'm going to move my ruler on down to 1/2 inch. So I know I want to make it that long right there. So, and I don't have, well, I do have, but I don't want to pull it out. Start to say I don't have another ruler that measures longer than this, but I do. I just don't want to pull it out right now. So there is 13, and then we're just going to go 1/2 inch, which is right there. All right, so we're going to put our ruler from up there down here, and we'll draw another line. So there is our line right there. Now, that's the width of it. So when we fold this in half, that's going to be our journal. But then we need to get the height. And this is probably more than what I need. So, well, it's 10 inches. I could go with that, but I think I'm going to cut it back to 9.5. I don't want it too much taller than my signature. So I'm going to cut it back to 9.5. You could leave it at 10 if you wanted. I just don't like the signature, or I don't like the cover too much taller than my signatures or my pages on the inside. So there is that. And then we're just going to line this up. And then draw our line down through here. And then I'm just going to X that one out so that I don't make a mistake and cut it wrong. And then I'm just going to try to go on down with that line to that part right there. Same over here. Okay. So that is going to be the size of the journal cover. Now I know this looks huge, doesn't it? I always double measure. I'll measure again once I get this cut. I never trust my first measurements. You could measure it again right now, but I know it's big enough. I just don't want it to be too big. So I'll measure it again as soon as I get this cut. And you can use your trimmer to cut this if you want. This won't fit in my trimmer, so, and it's very easy to cut with your scissors. All right, that looks like, and I'm not going to press this too hard because that stuff goes flying out everywhere. But that looks like our journal cover right there. And then when I put it together like this, I can see if I've cut it a little bit off anywhere. Like right here, I've cut a little bit at a little bit of a point there. It's not a biggie. I'll probably need to trim this down a little bit more anyway when I get my paper. When I get my fabric cut, because you don't want this as big as your fabric. So now let's do our fabric. So we did 13.5 by 9.5, right? Is that right? 13.5 by 9.5. And I got this off of Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. If I can find it again, I'll link it below. But I got it a couple of years ago, so I don't know if it'll still be there. Now, this is top. This is the bottom. So I know that I need my big length to run this way, my 13.5. Because that would fold, and then that would have all my flowers and everything the right way up. So 13.5 needs to run this way. Now the first thing I do is I look and see if the sides look pretty straight, and they really do on this, pretty straight. So I'm not going to allow for anything on the sides. If they're not straight, you need to straighten them up. And I put a little mark there, and then I'm just going to go there and put another mark right here. Now I should have just done this up at the very top, but you know I didn't. We'll do it again. There is 12, and then we've got 13.5. So then I'm going to take my scissors, and I'll be turning this every which way but loose. So you'll just have to bear with me. Okay, there's my mark. I had to find my mark again. Okay, I'm just going to cut a little piece. Oh, wow, that doesn't want to tear that way. Okay, so that is my width, and then I just need to get my height. So 9.5. Let's see if this looks pretty straight here. You can usually put it on your grid and you can tell. No, it's not real straight. So I'm going to tear another little piece of this off just to straighten it up. Usually tearing it will straighten it, but if it doesn't, I don't know, I must be a weakling today. There we go. And I can use that for toppers or whatever. Now see, to me, it still doesn't look like it is very straight, so I don't think it tore straight. That happens sometimes. See this and this? So when that happens, you know what I do? I just ignore it. No, I don't. When that happens, I go to the other end and I see if it is straight. And if it is, then I use the other end. And it looks pretty straight. All right, we need 9.5. So there's 9.5. Right there. So again, we're going to cut a little piece. I'm going to cut backwards, so I don't have to flip it again and then tear it. Now see, doesn't that look small? To me, when I tear the fabric out, I'm thinking, oh, that looks too little. Way too little. But usually it's the right size. But now I have been known to tear it wrong. I've got string all over me now. Now, I will tell you, this did not tear straight at all. Not at all. Look at this. So you run up on fabrics like this every now and then, and it's just, you can't help it. So in that case, you might need to cut it. Let's see if I have enough. Oh yeah, I have plenty. This is 9.5 here, this top one. So all I need to do is cut that bottom one off. So that's good. I always rather tear a little bit too big, because if something like this happens, at least you can even it up without having to mess everything up or waste a piece of fabric. I'm just going to grab my fabric scissors. Since I know it doesn't tear straight, there's no use in me trying to tear it again. So I'm going to mark one more time, just so I'll have something to go by, because I don't cut very straight either. Okay, that doesn't need to be cut at all. We just need to cut right here. Okay, got that, and I'll use that for a little tag topper or something. So now it looks like that we've pretty much got this pretty straight. Okay, then I'll measure it again. So when it's folded, I have 6.5, 6 3/4. That's good. And then the height, I have 9.5. That's good. Okay. So this is going to be the actual size of the journal. Now, I know this piece is probably larger, and it is, and that's okay. We'll cut it down in a minute. But I'm going to take this piece that I'm going to use for the inside, and it is most definitely not cut straight. But that's okay. We'll fix it. All I'm going to do is lay this one down on top. If you have one of those fabric markers, you can use that on here. I don't have one, so I just use my pencil. I can erase it, but today I think I'm just going to cut. I'm not having very much luck with tearing, so today we're going to cut. And again, this is something that doesn't have to be perfect, because you can always add lace, ribbon, whatever on it to make sure that you've got it, you know, make sure that it looks pretty well straight. Okay, we're going to cut this down. Another thing that you can use to kind of disguise the cutting process is you can use your pinking shears, and it will kind of disguise if you've cut a little bit off here or there. All right, now I take mine and I fold it like this, and I look at it, and it looks pretty much straight. So let's lay that down. This will go this side up on the inside. Well, Edith, you gotta put it this way if you want that side up. And this one will go this side up. And I am gonna stitch mine. And I may iron this before I stitch it, or before I put it together, because you can see I've got some lumps and bumps, and that will make a difference in whether they kind of match up or not. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this guy, because he doesn't need to be this big. So I'm going to turn it that way. And you say, well, why don't you just wait and trim it all at once? Well, you could do that. But you know, I do things backwards sometimes. You want this to sit on the inside of your cover, of your fabric. You don't want it to show on the edges of your fabric. Okay, that's going to sit on the inside. And then we just need to make sure that we get the length right. And it looks like I need to cut off about 1/2 inch. A lot of people have little templates for this, and they just lay it down on a table and do those X-Acto knives or whatever and cut it. Those rolling knives, I don't know what they're called. And cut it that way. I don't have templates. I just kind of freehand it. Normally it works. I don't have any complaints about it so far. All right, that's going to fit perfect right there. Now, what we're going to do is lay this down. Let's see, trying to figure out. I don't think that blue's going to show through. No, it won't show through this side. Lay this down, and since I'm going to stitch mine, all I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue on here. Just a little bit of our glue stick. This is a good quality glue stick. It holds. So that's all I'm going to do on here. If you're not going to stitch, then you need to use a good type glue and put it all the way around. All the way up to the edges. I'm not going to go right to the edge with my glue stick, because I don't want to get my needle all cloggy. So I'm just putting enough to hold this down. And then I'm just centering this. Okay. And then we're going to put some glue on here. But you can use your art glitter glue, Barely Arts glue. You can use whatever glue that you have. PVA glue. Let's try and see if that has an up or a down. And it really doesn't, because those pieces go in every direction. So we're just going to put it like this. This is our up. That's the top. This is the bottom. Now before I press it down, because once you press it down with this glue, it's pretty well stuck. Just going to kind of center it. And you can see the bottom piece is a little bit larger than this top. That's okay. I can always trim if I need to. Find my little tool here. I'm going to see if I can do it without ironing it. Sometimes I can get by with it, but not all the time. I just kind of take my little bone folder and I press it out all the way up to the edges. Just kind of get those little wrinkles out of there. And the wrinkles will come out when you fold it and put all your signatures in anyway, but sometimes if it's too bad, I will just go ahead and iron it anyway. But this is not too bad. It's smoothing out pretty good. Okay. And then if you get a little wrinkle that you just can't get out, then I just use my glue and I pull on it and let that glue catch it. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. Looks good. All right, I'm going to take it. This does look kind of bowed right there, but let me look at it. In the camera it does, but when I hold it like this, I don't know. I'm going to trim it just a tiny bit, but I don't know that it needs it. It just, in the camera, it looks a little off. Not much at all. Maybe it's just the way my camera's sitting. Yeah, that looks straight when you hold it out like that. Okay. All right. Then I'll take it to my sewing machine and I'll stitch. That's it. That's the way you do it with that Amazon packaging in the center. And you can hear. Nice and crunchy. So let me go stitch this and then I'll come back and show you how it's the finished product, and then we may go ahead and choose some papers today to start making our signatures. Right, we have it stitched together, and I know people are going to say, well, why don't you show us the stitching process? I can't get my sewing machine over here. It's too big to put under the camera, and then I can't get a camera set up over there because it's so dark in that little corner where I stitch. So I'm working on it. I'm working on getting some new lights over there, and then I'll set one camera up there and just leave it, and then I can show the stitching too. But I just did a little zigzag stitch all the way around, and I used the thread that I had in my sewing machine, which was kind of a tan looking thread. I just didn't want to change. I could have changed to red, but we've got a lot of red in here anyway. So that's what it's going to look like when it's folded up. I think that's beautiful. And it's still crunchy. Still crunchy. So, and I didn't have to iron it. All I did was when I was sewing, I just kind of pressed everything out good. So I like it. I like it a lot. Now, your little bag is going to try to make everything fold wrong because it's going to try to fold where it was folded. You just have to play with it a little bit. So that's our cover. Now, another thing I should have told you and I didn't. If you want lace in here, then you needed to put your lace down first. And, well, you could have put your lace down first and then went ahead and stitched it in at the same time. You can always add a lace pocket at a later date. You don't have to have it in first. You know, I could glue that down and put it in. And I will put some pockets in here. I just haven't decided if I want to put clear pockets, vellum pockets, or lace pockets. So that's why I didn't until I decide I want to do that. All right. I am going to go ahead and just choose some papers for the signatures. Now, I know that I want to use this one, and I know I want to use that other one. Even though I haven't printed on the back, I'll lay it out, but I'll have to wait and print on the back of that one. But then I'm just going to pull out some of my papers that I normally put in the kits. I normally put some of my favorite back-end paper. This is called drawing paper. I normally put some straw paper. I've got to get more of this. I'm about out. This is the handmade paper. So I need to be pulling out 2 and not 1, because I'll put 1 in each signature. Let me just pull this up here. It'll make it a lot easier, and I won't have to turn my head away from the microphone. All right, another one of those. Another one of those, and then I normally put, this is just a vintage paper that I got, again, off of Amazon. If I can remember, I'll link these for you guys, but who knows if I'll remember by the time I put the video up. And then I pull out some of my coffee dyed paper. And I put a couple of sheets of that in there. So there's 2. Well, I won't use the same one. Let's use a different one. That one and that one. And then I grab out some of my vintage book pages. Okay, these are some from 1859. I'm going to see if I can get some of these apart without tearing them. I may have to cut the glue off of. And I know this may be boring for some of you guys who know all about how to do this, but I've had lots of requests. Could I do it? And I just want to do it for the new guys. So all of you who say, I don't know how to start a journal, don't have a clue, here you go. This is as easy as it gets, because I don't do things difficult. All right, then we're going to pull out a couple of sheets of Edith Holden book page. And I'm not going to worry what flowers are on them. It doesn't really matter. Then I like to pull out, this is an old music book. It's one that's actually not been used, but it's a very vintage one. So I get a couple of pages of that. I have some very old music page. And what I'll do with these is just, oops, I won't do that. Well, I did do that, but normally I wouldn't do that. These are sometimes very, very strong. They've got a lot of glue on them. So you have to kind of put them together like that. Okay, so that's my music paper. I'll fold them like this. That's what I was going to say, because they're way too tall for the journal. Then I have a little miscellaneous pack here, and it's got just some doilies and different things in it, and it happens to have some of this, which is that very, very old paper that, like the doilies like they used to put on the tables a long time ago. They don't do anything like that anymore. And then this is some old piano paper. Put some of that in there. You can see I get a lot of things out on my desk. I like to put some ledger paper in there. So I'll put a couple of sheets of that. And then I've got this old first grade tablet that actually did not get used. And I put a couple of pieces of that in there as well. So these are the things that I add other than my digitals. So I'm going to fold some of these. Now, some of them may be too big. If they are, we'll trim them or we'll fold them, make pockets, whatever. But right now, I just fold all of them in the middle. I usually put some of my letters in there, my vintage letters in there too. And I don't think I have any of those printed right now, so I'll have to print some of those. I think this is actually more than one sheet of this. It is. Okay. And then this, of course, is way too big. But what I do is I just go ahead and fold it in the middle, and then I just decide if I'm going to trim it off or fold it in to make a pocket or what. And you could always coffee dye these or do whatever to them. I usually decorate them up when I get to that part in the journal, so I leave the little stitching parts on there. I like those little holes on there. Oops, I got 2 pages here. And then the Edith Holden pages, normally I leave them together and put them in, and then if they need folding up or whatever, I do that then. This one is just, well, these two are not together, so I'll need to hinge these. I think I've stirred up some dust. I am coughing now. I wouldn't doubt it. I'm sure my cabinets are dusty. I'm just cutting off that little piece that's all frayed there. So I'll hinge those like that probably, and then put those in the journal. I'm not going to hinge them right now. These are already together. They're ready to go in the signature, and I can't even get them apart. So they're ready. Now I do reinforce these. I'll show you. I do put some tape or something right down through here and reinforce them, because you can see they've got holes in there, and I don't want them to tear apart once they get in the journal. It's going to be a thick journal. You know I can't stop though. I want to put everything in there. Now, I know this is way too big, so I'm going to fold it like that, and then fold this piece over, and we'll make a side tuck pocket out of that. I know this one's too big. Ooh. Well, this one's torn. That's okay. We'll use this end. And then what I'll do is probably tear that off since it's already torn anyway. Or piece it, or whatever. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. These are too big. Some of them I know that are the wrong size because I've put them in so often. Oh, I am back. Brooklyn just came by to show me how she had her hair done in cowboy pigtails, as she said, to go to her riding lesson today. So I had to stop out, which I didn't have to, but I love it. Stop out and go talk to her for a while. And then these, I'm just going to fold in the middle. And then we'll separate everything into signatures later, because I've got to print on the back of those other ones. That's the first thing I do, is I get everything folded and put in a little stack, and then I separate my stacks and I figure out what I want where and when and how. I'm not a big Valentine fan, but like I told you, I love this paper. I like it. I did it, but I still like it. It's more, I don't know, vintagey Valentine rather than just the normal pinks and, you know, that kind of thing. I like my blues and my greens in there. Okay, this is my big stack. And you think that's not going to be a lot, but I've still got that other paper that I'll put in here. And then once we get pockets and tags and tucks and everything else in, this will be a nice, big, chunky journal. And of course, like I said, some of these are going to be too tall, but that's okay. We'll cut some of these off that are too tall, fold some of these that are too wide, but that's the start of it right there. That is how I began a journal. A lot of people do their ephemera first, and then they go to this. Everybody has their own way of doing things. I like to get my cover, because my cover tells me if it's going to match in here. So I take my paper and my fabric and I put it together and see what it's going to look like. And then I start, you know, separating things out and then grabbing other little things to put in there, other papers that you might have in your stash to put in there. So, and my ephemera is always last. So next thing we'll do is we'll get those other papers in here. I'll get all of that ephemera cut out. And then we will put the signatures in, the 2 signatures in. And then we'll start decorating. So that is my process. All right, guys, that is all I'm going to do on the video today because this video is kind of already long. I wanted to go slow so that the new people that are afraid to get started with a journal could see. It's very, very simple. Just pull it out and get going. If you don't have fabric, then just use paper. Just use chipboard. Whatever you have. I have done many, many journals with all different kinds of things. Chipboard, envelopes, fabric, old books, whatever you have. Just get it out and get started. The only place to begin is at the beginning, right? All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.